not been long since his mother encouraged him to go ahead and start performing miracles, even when he said, "Woman, it's not my time yet." And he had a few encounters after that where people got glimpses of who he is as the Messiah. But on this particular day, Jesus is going up to Jerusalem for a religious festival. And he goes there near the sheep gate in Jerusalem. And it's an interesting thing because he sees there's this large crowd of the sick who are gathered there. And one man in particular catches his eye, and Jesus knows that this man has been ill for 38 years. And you wonder, well, how does he know that? How does Jesus see this scene and recognize that this man has been ill for such a long time? And a fun thing about this event is that the history, the tradition of the church says that Jesus' maternal grandparents actually lived in this neighborhood. So it could be that he remembers seeing this guy his whole life. It could be that he has been through this place, through these pools with the 5 porches in Bethesda for all the years of his life as he's come back and forth for the festivals. So he was close to a place that he knew well. And we look at how it is the people are gathered there. The lore of that was that there would be an angel that would come and stir up those waters. Well, some people say maybe it was one of those hot springs that would bubble on occasion, kind of like an Old Faithful sort of situation. It would bubble up at an appointed time. And as Jesus comes here, he comes to this pool and he sees this man, and he asks him a question that is so simple, yet it's the question that we all really have to ask ourselves when we come to the Lord for healing. Do you want to get well? Do you want to get well? Obviously, he would say yes, right? He would say, of course, Lord, heal me. That would be the response we would expect. But what do we get from this man instead?
An excuse.
Excuses. Sir, I have no one here to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up while I'm trying to get in. Somebody else gets there first. Do you mean to tell me for 38 years people have gotten in front of him in line? I don't know about you, but if I'm in line for 5 minutes and somebody gets in front of me, I get a little vocal about it. I was at the Rapids one time in King's Dominion, and my friends and I cut in the line. Well, we had been off doing something else, so we went to be with our friend's mother, who was conveniently already in the line way up. Everybody started shouting at us. And people shouted on behalf of the people we cut in front of. So nobody in 38 years spoke up for this man. And at no point did he advocate for himself to get made well. He just has these excuses. And that's an important thing for us to consider, especially when we are trying to help people get better. It can be so hard when we have people around us that we know can be transformed by God, that we know can experience healing, that we know their lives could be better if only they would take certain measures. But every time we go to help, they seem to have an excuse. It seems to be someone else's fault for why they can't get their act straight. I had a woman who called me on the phone looking for assistance from the church. And she calls frequently. And I told her, look, we're not a social service agency. We believe in the healing power of God to take your life and transform it. And I can help you do that. But you have to listen and do what I tell you to do. Not that I'm trying to be bossy about things, but I said, I can help you get a job. I can help you with transportation. I can help you with all of these things. And every single time I offered a solution, she gave me a reason why that wouldn't work for her. Because some people don't want to be made well. They want the system to support them. They want to keep staying in this cycle again and again. But that's not what Jesus Christ is for. Jesus Christ is in the business of resurrecting what people think is dead. Jesus is in the business of complete and total healing. And even if our physical bodies might not be completely made well, our spiritual and our mental bodies can be. Jesus, when we come to him with all that we are, he is the one who can bring about new life. And so as the sick man is answering all of these things, Jesus just says to him, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. I wonder if that would have worked without Jesus. I wonder if that would have been the solution all along, for the man to just get up. But maybe it was the Word of God at work finally. The Word of God being spoken into his life. The Word made flesh and among us that gave him the healing that he needed. I like this story in the gospel because it doesn't say it's the man's fault that he is paralyzed. It doesn't say that it's his sin that had put him in that situation. It doesn't say that it's any fault of his own. But at the same time, Jesus just comes in and speaks a word. We find that sometimes in the Gospel of John, that Jesus doesn't have to get really physical with people to bring healing. Some of the other Gospels, we hear Jesus spitting into the dirt and making mud and putting it on their eyes. You can say ew about that, because really, who wants spit on your eyes? We find him dunking people and touching people in certain ways. But here in this gospel, at this beginning of Jesus' ministry, it only takes the word for Jesus to speak and people are made well. That's the encounter that people need to have. I want you to think about places in your life where you need God to bring some aspect of healing. And as you consider that, we are confronted with the same question. Do you want to get well? We've been reading this book about foods that will make us healthier. And so today I was making this great shopping list for all my groceries. And I was inspired to get all healthy things. And I came back, I came down and John had come back from the store and he said, we got ramen. And ramen noodles have to be about the least healthy thing you can eat, ever. And I'm like, that wasn't on the list. Do you want to get well? If we want to be physically well, it's something as simple as, maybe we shouldn't eat those kinds of things that we know are making us sick. Maybe it's a time for us to put aside habits that we know are harming us. Do you want to get well? We make all the excuses, but it's a simple yes or no. If it's yes, then what are we going to do to respond? Are we going to take our mats and get up and walk and experience the healing that Christ offers us? And if the answer is no, then we have to be willing to live with the consequences of that choice and maybe stop worrying and complaining about why we haven't been healed. Do you want to get well? As God calls us to experience wholeness, that's the question that we have time and time again. And this question always makes me also think of, like I said, it's Father's Day weekend, so I've been thinking a lot about my dad. And he was the mayor of the town we lived in for 30 years. And people would come and knock on the door so often, and they would come for assistance. And so many times I would say, Dad, why are you helping that person? They don't deserve to be helped. They just came here last week for the same thing. But he understood the ones who wanted to be better. And I'll never forget that how he could see the potential in people. There were all these kids in our neighborhood who would steal stuff from everybody. They would always steal people's bikes. They'd get in trouble. They'd get in trouble with the law all the time. And I would come outside sometimes, and he'd be sitting on the porch talking to these young men. And I'd say, Dad, why are you spending time with him? He's probably going to come back and rob us. And my dad said, no, he's not going to do anything. But that young man is just like I was. And I want them to know the hope that there is in Jesus Christ. That you can have new life. You don't have to be held back by all of the excuses. You don't have to be held back by who people say you are in the world. But you can be transformed. And he lived that. And that's why whenever I think about wanting to turn my back and say, leave that guy there. He's been sitting there for 38 years. If he doesn't want to help himself, too bad. The other part of me hears my dad saying, that is a worthy person that God can heal. But they have to also do what God calls them to do. So do you want to get well? Where is it that you need God to do that in your life? And where do you need to speak that into the lives of the people around you who you know God can fix, who you know God can heal? Do you want to get well? Let us all answer, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Would you pray with me? God, we all sit here knowing circumstances where we need you to be at work. We have friends and we have family members who we see suffering. We see people on the side of the road as we're driving to and from work. And we say, why are they still there? Why has nothing changed? God, help us to be those who offer your healing to others. Help us to ask the hard question, do you want to get well? And then be willing to walk alongside people in that journey. But oh Lord, also, help us be honest with ourselves with the same question. Help us to ask it daily. And to trust that as you lead and guide us to what is better, what is right, and what can bring peace and wholeness to our lives, that we will follow the way that you lead. Take up our mats, get up, and walk. May we be your people in all that we do. Thanks be to God. Amen.